If your team got guaranteed money, tell them call me.
Whoop. Make me say, my.
I done been around the world. Yeah, I was made for this.
Player Performance with J.A. Cavalier.
Welcome, everybody, to College Football Player Performance, the College Football Playoff Semifinals. I am Guns Picks, and that over there is the legend himself, Coach Rick. How you doing on this beautiful Thursday? I guess it'd be a Thursday morning when you watch this.
It'll be Thursday whenever you see this. It's a beautiful day. Great to be alive. And I remember way back, we talked about, we'll run this all the way through the college football playoff, and it's unbelievable that it's semifinal time already, which it's awesome. Two great games that we're going to talk about. Last week, hopefully you guys tailed both of us. I don't remember. I know you did well. You had to, because I did. I think I got them all. 7-0 actually. Yeah, which was pretty cool. So, we've been hot. And I think we're going to carry that through this week as well.
Yeah, it is. I mean, just bowl season in general, if you've been listening to us, I mean, it was even for the VIPs and everybody that got like the premium plays, you made some bank with us. I mean, Coach and I never even talked about the plays and which ones we were on. And sure as shit, it was like every single one is like, yep, we're on the same stuff. But we got some plays to break down, a lot of notes, a lot of breakdowns. So we're going to give you everything for discussion points into these games. And without further ado, we're going to be starting with the first one here. A great matchup here with the Miami Hurricanes facing them Rebs of Ole Miss. Kind of a surprise to see these two teams in there. Of course, a little upset special, double-digit dog beating Ohio State. I think that was the one that I got wrong. Obviously, if you've been following around on Telegram, I got that one way off, but then I went on that run. So I digress. Ole Miss on the other side. It was a coin flip in that game, and they got it done in revenge versus the Georgia Bulldogs. Now we see them at the Fiesta Bowl at State Farm, Glendale, Arizona. 7:30 is going to be the kick on Thursday. So you're watching this early. Got to get the bet in. I'll start with you, Coach. What do you think about this game?
The theme for both of these semifinal games, I think it's defense. So three of the top defenses in the country we're going to see Thursday and Friday night. And not to say that Ole Miss can't play defense, but they're just not at the level of the three other schools here. The line open for this game, Miami -2.5, and I've seen it up to -3.5 at most sports books. Now there's some threes out there, but we'll talk about that in a moment. As I mentioned, theme defense. So you go back to SMU. Miami played SMU, and they lost that game, a game they probably shouldn't have lost, but they did. And since that game, their defense has been just unbelievable. They've given up 10, 7, 17, 7, 3, and then 14 last week to Ohio State, which, Ohio State's a pretty good football team. I mean, but they have just been getting it done with, they shut down the run, and they limit what you do in the passing game. So for Ole Miss, really, it's all about Trinidad Chambliss, right? I mean, the kid's awesome, but if you watch the tape from Georgia last week, if you watch that tape, Georgia actually did get after him. And they were able to force him to run and move out of the pocket, and they didn't get to him. It wasn't like they were able to get him on the ground. And that's because Georgia really, if you look at their sack rate, I think they're 125th in the country or something.
It's terrible.
They weren't good. They weren't, they don't get sacks. They were able to they were able to put some pressure, but they didn't finish. You do that this week, Miami finishes. So Miami's 7th in the country in sack rate. I'm not sure their exact number of sacks, but they get after quarterbacks and they put them down. So Trinidad Chambliss is going to have his hands full, and Ole Miss is an air raid team. So, if whether you know anything about air raid or what that means or whatever, it's an offense that's built on the pass. They're number 3 in the country in passing offense. Trinidad Chambliss can make every throw, but he will not be able. Like if you want to run some of the staples of the air raid, like Y cross and mesh and some of these other concepts, like he can't take a 3-step drop with a hitch and then expect to be able to throw the football because he's going to have a dude in his face or two or three. Corey Heatherman is probably my favorite defensive coordinator in the country because he, and I mentioned this, I think I did last week about how it's a positionless type defense. So, Miami, you might have like on a passing situation, you might have 3 or 4 guys lined up, on the defensive line who none of the 4 are actually defensive linemen. Like they're hybrids. They're guys that can run and rush the passer. You might have, you might have 6 or 7 D-backs on the field at times. You might have a guy playing in the box who's really a safety, right? So I think it's a very tough defense to crack. I think Ole Miss is going to have their hands full. That said, what can Ole Miss do to have some success? Well, they got to run the football, but I mean, what's Miami done all season? I think they give up 70, 80 yards rushing per game. Last couple games, 30, 89, and 45. And they've given up some passing yards. Ohio State got 287 passing yards, but really, most of those yards came in 3 drives. One was at the end of the first half, and then 2 in the second half. And that's it. They sacked Sayan 5 times, picked him off twice, right? Tons of pressure. They had 7 tackles for loss, and they also had a defensive touchdown, right? So it's a defense that's built on havoc, and I think they get after Ole Miss in this one. A couple stats that I love. You look at yards per play, or in this case, opponent yards per play. Miami holds teams to 4.4 yards per play. It's 6th or 7th in the nation. They're 14th in the country on third down. I think it's about 32 or 33%. When you hold teams to that, like that means they're punting you the ball, right? So, and then you go to the red zone. When they get to the red zone, they tighten up. They're 29th or 30th in red zone scoring percentage. So it's going to be a tough day for Ole Miss, I believe. And like I said, the only way they're really going to be able to do anything is if they're able to run the football and control it. Because how did Georgia beat Ole Miss, back in the regular season? All about ball control, which, what can Miami do? Well, they can turn around and hand the ball to Mark Fletcher. And Carson Beck, if he doesn't make mistakes, they'll control the football. They keep it away from Ole Miss, forget it. So, for me, I think the line movement speaks for itself. And it's telling you, hey, you got to back the Miami Hurricanes here. So, I prefer the 3, but I'm not afraid of Miami minus 3.5. And then the other thing, I think you'll talk about this, and I'll let you get into it. But early in these games, I think the defense is kind of rule, and the offenses are more conservative. They want to kind of see what's going on so that they can make some halftime adjustments. So. If you're looking at any totals, you probably, want to take a look at the first half unders. And then I'll mention this. I'll mention one thing just because, Ole Miss, I think their lowest point total of the season is 24. And I think they did it twice, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Tennessee and LSU. You can look that up. But they've scored 24 or more in every game. I'm not sure that they get to 24 against Miami, but the total in this game has kind of inched up a little bit. I think it went up another tick to 52.5. If you're thinking about taking the over, take a look at both teams to score 20 plus, because it's right around minus 150 right now. So, and again, I always bring it up just because it's an option. If you're thinking about taking the over. So yep. I'll let you take it from here.
You mentioned they held the 24 points twice this year, and it was against Washington State, which is a great defense.
Yeah, they were good defensively. Yeah,
and LSU.
Yeah. I thought one was LSU.
Yeah, this was all early in the year stuff, and I think when we if you were watching the show week to week, we talked about these two defenses and how great they were playing, and I think that Washington State one kind of fell under the radar. as far as their defensive prowess is concerned.
Yeah.
But they held Ole Miss to 24 points. Yeah, when I looked at this game, you hit a lot of the key points on this one. Miami's. I'll go with the Miami offense here. We talked a little bit. A coach pretty much got everything out on the defense. I'll say this about the defense is the brilliance of what that Miami defense is like they don't come and bring 7 people at you. They don't really have to.
Yeah.
They have their defensive line is so stout and so strong. They can put pressure on you with 4 guys. And mind you, this Miami. I know this Ole Miss team. Really has a low sack rate. I think it's like 3.2% or something like that. But that didn't matter with Ohio State. They put up 5 sacks against them. That didn't matter against Texas A&M. They put 7 sacks on Marcus on Reed. So I think those you got to throw that out when you're playing Miami. I mean, the pressure is going to be coming regardless of how many people they can bring. And I know the defensive packages for the former Minnesota defensive coordinator. He's going to mix it up there. And then I know everybody wants to be down on the Miami offense, and I get it. They put up 278 yards versus Texas A&M, but mind you, the weather was a factor in this one. They had to run the ball. It was a slow, methodical type of game. They put 291 on Ohio State. They didn't put up 300. It was like, well, if you go and look at the numbers on this one, Ohio State is the number 1 defense in the country going into that game. And the Miami offense put up 77 yards, 77 yards above Ohio State's season average as far as of how many yards they give up per game to their opponents. So Miami actually did better against a majority of the teams that Ohio State had faced all year. In the 2 playoff games, you could go and look at the numbers on this one. I think the rushing is going to be virtually a complete brick wall. If you go look at the numbers on that one, Texas A&M, great running team, only put up 89 yards on the ground. Ohio State, same thing, 45 rushing yards. I held them to 1.9 yards per carry and held them to 98 yards below their season average. Texas A&M 128 below their season average offensively. And then Miami had, like I said, 7 sacks versus A&M, 5 sacks versus Ohio State. And even though Trinidad Chambliss can move around and get out of situations, and I think that's probably why you're seeing a low QB sack rate in a lot of these cases, because what I did see, and Coach alluded to it, Georgia did put pressure on him, but Georgia doesn't have those guys that can go and finish plays as far as tackles for loss. That was always a problem for them all season long, even though they can create some sort of havoc and make the quarterback rush a little bit. But if you have a little bit of mobility and can extend a play, I think that's what Ole Miss took advantage of in the previous game. But when I broke this down from a standpoint of offense versus defense, Ole Miss is probably the weaker defense out of the 4 teams, 22nd in the country as far as Massey Power ratings are concerned. Of course, Miami is ranked 3rd. The first half total is I've been doing this with Bulls all season long, and I'm picking my spots on this one, and I'm looking at the math of what the total is versus what we're looking at from an overall perspective of the total. We're seeing the total here right around 53, 52 and a half. I've seen the total as low as 24 and a half in the first half, and I've seen now it's getting up to like right around 25 and a half, which is even better number, but that's still below 50% of the line in the first half. And I think they're adjusting on the sheer fact that this Miami defense holds their opponents to 4.1 points per game in the first half this year and has not given up a single point in the first half in both playoff games. Not a point. 0-0. And I mean, it is very hard to score on this team. And Ole Miss, their offense is kind of, I've seen it in multiple games. They kind of play a little bit slow and methodical early, and then they make their adjustments in the second half. So probably expect a higher pace second half from the offenses here. And this Miami team, I think if they're going to come out here swinging to win this game, they're going to have to do it early against this Ole Miss team, because if they start playing tit for tat with them, it could be a long day for this Miami offense and this Miami defense, because I think the Miami offense just doesn't have the arsenal that the Ole Miss team has. And I'll say this about Ole Miss: I can give all the numbers in the world about their defense and how there is such a gap as far as the talent is concerned from their other opponents. The last 2 games, they played pretty well on the defensive side. I will say that. So with all that being said, I think we're going to be looking at a first half under. Let's do that here for the show play. Of course, I have more takes. I have more looks, side total, and everything else. You can go check that out on my Telegram, and I got a deal for the entire rest of the college football playoff and the semifinals. So go check that out. But yeah, the Miami Ole Miss under first half is a damn look, in my opinion. Coach gave everything he said on the Miami side, and the team totals, actually. Team total overs. Yes, from a full game perspective, you could probably look at that as well. All right, let's look at the next game on the board here. The Friday night special, a rivalry it's turning out to be, because these teams did see each other earlier in the year in Autzen Stadium, where Indiana prevailed there in the fourth quarter and got the job done. But now we have them on a neutral field with no weather concerns in sight here at the Peach Bowl in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. It is going to be an electric time between two coaches that respect the hell out of each other. And we may be seeing this new age rivalry come to fruition into this game with Oregon versus Indiana. Kurt Cignetti versus Dan Lanning. Coach, what do you think about this one?
I mean, this really could be it is, in my eyes, it's the national title, right? I mean, these for me, I mean, I think they're just the two best teams in this thing. And then, of course, I'll mention it again because I have said it before, but, they already played, right? And Indiana beat them. And, so I guess the most interesting thing about this game is that it's a rematch, because there's some angles here, right? And we'll get to that in a minute, and I'll talk about it. But this game's really interesting for me. Obviously, if you've watched this before, my connection to Cignetti's, and but I also have a connection to both quarterbacks in this game, which is interesting. So if you don't know, maybe you haven't watched this before, I'm in the Detroit metro area, and I have coached high school football in this area for maybe the last 10 or 15 years. And I've also trained quarterbacks in the Midwest here for about the last 12 years. So Dante Moore was a freshman at Martin Luther King High School out of Detroit. The school I was at, we went against them in a summer 7-on-7 session, kind of informal. But Dante Moore was 14 years old, and I can remember watching him thinking, man, this kid's going to be really, really good. And then the kid that I had, Ryan Brown, who's now at Purdue, actually didn't play QB for us that year because he was too valuable at other positions. He was our best athlete. But Ryan actually, when COVID hit the next year, we actually sent him to Florida, and his senior year, he ended up playing for Venice High School, and he played, they were very good. They played in the state playoffs, and in a Class 8A state semifinal game, Ryan's team, Venice, beat Columbus High School out of Miami, which was quarterbacked by Fernando Mendoza. So if I find the picture, I'll post it on my Telegram. But Venice won that game 35-7, and I've got a picture of Fernando Mendoza laying on the field after being defeated. But I bring that up just because it's kind of a unique connection to both QBs. The other interesting thing that I mentioned before is the rematch angle, right? So these two teams played. Indiana won the game 30-20. It was a great football game. And if you don't remember, the game was tied 20-20 with about 12 minutes left. So, I mean, pretty even football game. I think Indiana ended up outgaining them by maybe 50 yards or so. Kicked the field goal and got a TD there in the fourth quarter, and they won the game. Rematches, like, that's been kind of a thing in the playoffs in recent years, where two teams played during the season and they meet in the playoffs. I think it's happened 6 times over the last couple of years. Only one time has a team beaten the team twice. It's really, really hard to beat a team twice. I've said that before. And as a coach and a former high school head coach, like, that's hard. And I've been in that situation, and I have a story for you in a moment. But the only time that a team has, won that second rematch was actually Ole Miss when they beat Tulane this year. They beat Tulane early in the season, came back and beat them pretty easily in the playoffs too. But that's the only time in a rematch that we've had a team win both games. History kind of also would favor Oregon in the fact that over the last 2 years, this new format, the top 4 teams get a bye, right? So they're off for a week, and you think that might help them. Well, the teams with a bye are 1-7. Only 1 out of 8 teams that got a bye and were off. Only one of them won. That team happens to be Indiana, which is ironic, right? So, it's an interesting angle. But for me, this comes down to one thing, and that's where the story time comes in. I told Guns that we'd have a story today, and he told me not to tell it yet because he wants to hear it.
I want to hear it.
So the story goes like this. I mentioned that it's really, really hard to beat a team twice. As a high school head coach, I ran into this 2 times. And one I remember vividly. We had to play a team. They were really, really good, and we actually played them in a conference championship game, and just beat the shit out of them. I mean, we played a really good game. We never punted. My quarterback, he was awesome. He scored. I think we scored 6 times. He scored them all, whether he threw or ran or whatever. But we lit him up. And then we had to play him again later in the state playoffs. We met again, and we did beat him again, but it was a much different football game. And I'll get to how it ended here as I tell the next story, which goes back to my days coaching for Kurt Signetti's father at IUP, which Kurt actually, that's where he took his first head coaching job too. So it was 1990. Actually, I went back and I looked and figured out the dates, but it was 1990, and Coach Signetti sent me and another guy to go film a school called Edinburgh University. It was a rival that we played every year that was in our conference. And I said, go film these guys, film the sideline, film their signals and go figure out what they are. Okay. So that, I think I told the story before. So I kind of had that Connor Stallions deal before there was Connor Stallions, right? So I ended up figuring out all the signals that this team had, and we played them. I think it was the first week in November in 1990. We played them at home, and I sat in the booth next to the defensive coordinator, and I called every formation, then I called the play. And they were really good. They had a receiver, I can't remember his name, but really good. I think he ended up at the Browns camp that year. I don't know if he made the roster, but it was actually a high-scoring game, very similar to the game that I just mentioned with the high school team that I coached. It was a higher-scoring game. I think we beat them 36-29, I believe, and we did win the game. But a couple weeks later, in the very first round of the NCAA Division II playoffs, we ended up playing the exact same team, and we beat them again. It's hard to beat a team, hard to beat a team twice. But we beat them again, but it was much, much different. And both of those games that I was involved in, one as a high school head coach, one as a college assistant, both games, the high school game ended up 7-6. The college game was 14-7. And I think that's what you're going to get here. Okay. Like I said, it's hard to beat a team twice. I'm not on a side yet in this game, but I'm 100% on the under. These are 2 top 5 defenses. These guys are outstanding. I don't know if you know the term run fits, but these teams play very good gap control defense. They do not allow teams to run the football. They are very, very good in coverage. They will pressure the quarterback just enough. And I think both offenses are going to have a really, really tough time manufacturing points. And just look at the first game. These 2 teams played, the total was 51.5 in that game in October. Now it's 47.5. So, what are they telling you? Well, I think they expect a little bit of a lower scoring game. So, if you like the first half under, again, another situation where you got 2 really, really good defensive teams, 2 offenses that are probably going to have to kind of figure out, hey, what are we going to do to attack this opposing defense? Let's find out what works in the first half and then maybe, make some adjustments in the second. So I think you have a first half where, that might be worth a look at the under, but I really like the full game under 47.5.
Yeah. I mean, great points. Great story, ties right back to it. a little bit of the stats on these two teams is like you're looking at these two teams are, to me, when I look at the numbers, almost identical to each other. I mean, you have an Indiana team offensively is ranked 3rd in the country per the Massey ratings. They're 4th in scoring, 11th in yards per game, 8th in yards per play. They're 25th in red zone scoring percentage. And then Oregon's offense is ranked 2nd in the country per the Massey ratings. And I use Massey ratings as a good barometer because I've just from my history of capping bowl games, I find that theirs is a little bit just hits more accurate to the handicapping perspective rather than looking at Sagarin or looking at some of these other type of rankings that we use for college football. Oregon's offense is 12th in scoring, 9th in yards per game, 5th in yards per play. A little bit lower on the red zone scoring percentage because they score on big numbers, big runs and stuff like that. So the numbers are a little bit skewed on that when they're 84th in the country in that perspective. But the defensive side of the ball, everybody wants to talk about Indiana. Of course they do, because they held an Alabama team to 3 points in the previous game. They're 2nd in opposing scoring, 3rd in opposing yards per game, and they're 11th in opposing yards per play, and they're 2nd in the country overall. But this Oregon team, don't sleep on their defense. I mean, Dan Lanning knows how to build a defense. They're 5th in the country in overall in defensive rankings, and they're 6th in opposing scoring, 4th in yards per game, 5th in opposing yards per play. We saw a perfect example against that high-powered Texas Tech $41 million offense, held them to 0 points. 0 points. The absolute donut is like, this is not a fluke here, folks. Everybody wants to go look at JMU and them putting up 500 plus yards. Great. But the game was already out of hand by the second quarter anyways. Who knows what happened in that one? Probably left their foot off the gas pedal. And I think that probably left a sour taste in Lanning's mouth. That's why we saw that performance last week. But you go look at when these two teams met against each other, and you compare it to the overall package of every single game that they played this year. Did you know those two offenses had their worst offensive production performances against one another this year? Every single one. Indiana put up 326 yards of total offense. They put up 211 rush yards, 215 in the pass game. Oregon only put up 267 yards of total offense, which is unheard of when you're facing an Oregon team. 81 rushing yards too. That is unfathomable of a performance there from Indiana. And that Oregon held Indiana to 153 yards below their season average, while Indiana's defense held Oregon to 205 yards below their season average. So both teams performed exceptionally well on the defensive end of the ball. First half defensive numbers. Indiana only gives up 6.1 points per game in the first half to opponents. No one scored more than 10 points against them in the first half. And if you go look at the Oregon side, Oregon holds teams in the first half to 5.1 points per game. Only 2 teams scored 13 or more points. That was in Indiana, who it was 13-10 at halftime, and it was USC, who scored 14 points but was down 27-14 in the first. And then you got to look at the total in this one. We're seeing 22.5, may drop to 21.5 before this game kicks off as far as the first perspective is concerned. But that is below 50% of the full game total. So they're telling you early on that these teams are going to bash heads like Rams, and it's going to be a little bit of rock fight with these two offenses. I know Mendoza, even when I watched Mendoza against an Alabama team that defense was kind of not great, I think they only scored 17 points in the first half, but they held Alabama to nothing. So I think that this is a very different element, a very different team. This is going to be their strongest opponent in a while. And I will throw there, which was a low-scoring affair as well. I think that was 13-10 in the final in that one. So let's go first half on this one, guys. And then you can find 22.5s out there. I'm telling you, anything below at 21 and above, you're perfectly fine. I don't think this surpasses 21 whatsoever. So I'm taking the under in this one, 22.5 first half. That's the way I'm playing this one. All right. We just broke down 2 games in the semifinals. Shall we give them a best bet, Coach?
I think we shall.
Let's do it. All right, Coach, what do you think?
Well, we might have the same best bet, but I'll go with the first game. Miami's defense. I mean, these Oregon, Indiana, Miami, they're just so good. But I think Miami just is they're hot right now, and I think their defense just gets after Ole Miss to the point where this defense wins a football game for them, just like it did it against Ohio State. So Miami, I like the -3 better. They're still out there. You might -120 maybe or so, but I like Miami -3.
Yeah, I'm going to be toggling with the first halves on this one. Just been my tried and true all the way through the bowl season. And I'm going to go with that Oregon Indiana game. That under 22 and a half is just going to be a rock fight. It was 13-10 at halftime. And it was 10-10 at one point, but a last second field goal before the half got them to 13-10. I don't expect these offenses to come out swinging right off the gate. These guys know each other too well. They're looking at the game film. They're studying. And you have two great defensive-minded coaches going up against one another. I think these offenses struggle early. We may see something a little bit more in the second half. We'll have to see about that. But I think these two teams know each other too damn well. And like you said, this could be a low-scoring affair all the way through the damn game. But first half, get your ticket, cash it,
Get it in.
out of there, and watch some good football to finish it off there in the semifinals. But I could go on for days on both of these games, and I do have takes on this one. If you want to get the entire semifinals, I got plenty of picks. I think I threw maybe 15 to 17 units on these two games alone. If you want to go get those, go to my Telegram, get the pass. I got a max bet too. So if the max bet doesn't hit, you get the national championship free. And sure as shit, I'm going to have a lot of plays in the national championship game, the last college football game of the year. So it's going to be well worth it. Go sign up now. Coach, what do you got going on? I see you got a deal on some college basketball, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah. College basketball's been pretty good. Last night I had the worst night yet this season, of course.
You've been on a heater for a while.
I was on a heater, and we had regression, right? Negative regression, whatever. But still a couple great picks too. And if you were on Texas Tech last night, we got lucky with the that shot at the end. But anyway, college basketball, I've been killing it. Nearly 70% for the last month or so, which is ridiculous. And you think, oh, well, coach, he's going to regress a little bit. Last tournament season, like just the NCAA tournament, like I hit 72% in the tourney too. So, and me, I don't like to, rah myself, but I win. I don't know everything. I always say I don't know everything and I don't win all the time, but I know a lot and I win a lot. So you can get 1 month of my college basketball for $100. Or if you want to take the whole like regular season, from now right up until the tournament starts, you can get all that for $199.
Yeah, beautiful. That's a beautiful deal. Yeah, it's an investment. I'm going to do that eventually. I'm going to drop the season price down. I'll probably do it after the CFP. But yeah, with me, I'll tell you this with college basketball, just a little bit of breakdown. It's like I am the JMU football team of college basketball. I'm slow out of the gate. I get back into halftime. I make my adjustments, and I absolutely go cruising in the back half of the season. And I'm in that cusp of doing that right now. I'm playing a little 4 and 3s, a little 3 and 4s right now. And now it is like, but I was up 60 units last year in the tournament in March. The entire month of March was over 60 units. So if you, I'll have a good season price for you guys coming up. But right now, it's all football, baby, and we got the NFL coming up as well. Just check us out. And I'm always watching the games. Always got eyeballs on the game. So if I see some first half, second half looks in some of these games, well, by God, I'm going to give that to absolutely free to everybody that follows me on Telegram. Check us out on Instagram as well. @whylose_guns and @whylose_coach. And there's links in the bio to get to the Telegram if you want to know how to get there. All right. We did it. We'll be back for the Natty next. I guess it'd be. Is that no? It's next.
The 19th is the game.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it next week. It'll be out Thursday, so you guys have enough preparation to get the picks in, and the NFL content's going to be coming out on Sunday. I'm talking a little playoffs. Can't wait to do that with you guys. Make sure you like and subscribe to the J Cavalier channel, and make sure you drop a few comments in this video and hit the like and share and all that stuff that they tell you to do on YouTube. All right. fourth college football player performance. I am Guns Picks. That is Coach Rick. Let's cash some tickets. Let's dominate the board. And as always, Coach.
Giddy up.
Hey, let's keep dancing. Bye-bye.
Cut my life into pieces. This is my life.